The darkness of space held many secrets, but none as strange as the structure floating near the void sector. Captain stood on the bridge of his exploration ship, watching the massive object grow larger on the screen. It looked ancient, covered in ice and dust from countless years drifting through the emptiness. "Captain, the readings are strange," his second officer said. "The materials don't match anything in our database." Nodded slowly. The United Coalition had been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years. They had found 847 different species, built great cities on 1 million worlds, and created peace among the stars. But sometimes they still found mysteries. "Take us closer," ordered. "Prepare the boarding team." The structure was enormous when they got near. It had smooth walls made of metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered the surface, writing that the ship's computer could not read. Felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories as a child, tales that parents told to make children behave. Stories about the first walkers, the ones who came before. The boarding team found an entrance. Inside, the station had power. Dim lights turned on as they walked through the corridors. Everything was preserved perfectly, as if time had stopped. They found rooms filled with equipment, screens showing data in an unknown language, and weapons unlike anything the Coalition used. "Captain, you need to see this," a voice crackled over the radio. Rushed to the location. His team stood in a large chamber filled with hundreds of glass pods. Frost covered most of them, and inside were bodies. Not aliens that recognized, but something else. They stood on 2 legs, had 2 arms, and faces that looked almost familiar in a strange way. "Humans," whispered. The word felt heavy in his mouth. Every child in the Coalition knew the stories. 3,000 years ago, a race called humans had fought against something terrible called the Veil. The Veil had come from another dimension, trying to destroy all life in the galaxy. The humans had stopped them, but at a terrible cost. Their worlds had been destroyed, and they had vanished from the stars. Most people thought the stories were just myths, legends made up to teach lessons about sacrifice and bravery. But here was proof. Humans had been real. "Sir, this one is different," a technician called out. One pod in the center of the room showed green lights instead of red. Inside, a human woman floated in liquid, her eyes closed. The pod's screen displayed information in human writing, but underneath, someone had added translations in several Coalition languages. "It says her name is," the technician read. "She's a doctor, a scientist who studied alien life. The pod has been keeping her alive for," he paused, checking the numbers again, "for 3,000 years. Made a decision that would change everything. Wake her up." The process took hours. Slowly, the pod drained its liquid. The woman's eyes opened, confused and afraid. She gasped for air, coughing as her lungs worked for the first time in. The medical team rushed to help her, wrapping her in warm blankets and checking her vital signs. Looked around the room with wide eyes. She saw the aliens surrounding her, species she had never seen before. She saw her fellow humans in their pods, still frozen. Then she understood. "How long?" she asked in her language. The computer translated her words. 3,000 years, said gently. Closed her eyes, tears ran down her face. Everything she knew was gone. Her world, her friends, her family, all lost to time. But there was no time for grief. Far away, in the Coalition's core territories, Commander Sara watched her screens with growing concern. She commanded a military station on the frontier, protecting Coalition space from any threats. And now, her sensors were showing something impossible. The readings looked like the old records, the ancient data from the human war, energy signatures that didn't belong in normal space, distortions in reality itself. Sara had studied history, had read the classified files about the Veil. She knew what these readings meant. She opened a communication channel to Coalition Command. "This is Commander Sara at Station 74. I need to speak with the High Council immediately. Priority Alpha. What's the emergency, Commander? The officer on the other end asked. Sara looked at her screens again, hoping she was wrong. But the readings were clear and getting stronger. The veil is coming back, she said. Across the galaxy was helping learn about the new universe she had woken up to. He showed her images of the coalition worlds, the thousands of species living in peace. He explained how much time had passed, how civilization had rebuilt after the Great War. What happened to Earth? Asked. What happened to my people? Hesitated. We don't know. All human worlds went silent after the war. We found ruins on some planets but no survivors. Most people think humans died fighting the Veil. You might be the last one. Felt empty inside. She had gone into that pod thinking she would sleep for a few months, maybe a year, while her ship completed its research mission. Instead, she had lost everything. Tell me about the humans, she said quietly. What do people say about us? Smiled sadly. They say you were the greatest warriors the galaxy ever knew, that you fought with a kind of madness, never giving up even when victory was impossible. Parents tell their children stories about human bravery and sacrifice, but most people think you're just legends now. Ancient lore, not real history. Looked at her reflection in the glass of the empty pods. She was real. Humans had been real. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the enemy they had fought was returning. Then perhaps, she said softly, it's time to remind them what humans really were. The coalition station felt too clean, too perfect. Walked through the corridors with, trying to understand her new reality. Everyone stared at her. Some looked curious, others afraid. She was a ghost from the past, a legend that had suddenly become flesh and blood. You need to eat something, said, guiding her to the station's dining area. The medical team says your body is adjusting well, but you need proper nutrition. Sat down at a table and brought her food. It looked strange, nothing like what she remembered from Earth. But she was hungry, so she ate. The taste was odd but not terrible. A tall alien approached their table. He had 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. Captain, is this really a human? Yes, this is Doctor. She's going to help us understand the old technology we found on the structure. Stared at with large eyes. I am an engineer. I have studied human technology for my entire life. Your people created things we still cannot fully understand. Our fastest ships use engines based on human designs, but we only got them to work at 60% efficiency. Your medical technology could cure diseases we still struggle with. And your weapons, he paused. Your weapons were terrifying. Felt uncomfortable. We weren't all about weapons. We were explorers, scientists, artists. But you were also warriors, said. The records are clear. When the Veil came, every other species tried to run or hide. Only humans ran toward the danger. You fought battles that killed billions of your own people just to save others. That's not normal. That's, he searched for the word, insane. We did what was necessary, said quietly. Left them alone and tried to change the subject. The council wants to meet you. They have many questions about the old war, about human technology. But first, there's something you should see. He took her to the station's archive room. The walls were covered with screens showing historical data, pulled up files about humanity, and saw her people through alien eyes. The records showed Earth as it had been, a beautiful blue world covered in water and green land. Then came images of the war, massive ships fighting in space, planets burning, and humans, always humans, fighting against impossible odds. After the war ended, we sent exploration teams to all known human worlds, explained. Earth was gone, shattered into pieces. Your colony worlds were empty, abandoned. We found messages, though, video recordings left behind. He played one for her. A human man appeared on the screen, wearing a military uniform. He looked tired, his face covered in scars. To whoever finds this, the man said, Humanity has won the war against the Veil, but the cost was too high. Earth is dying. Most of our colonies are destroyed. We have decided to leave. We are too dangerous to stay among other species. We love war too much, understand violence too well. The galaxy will be safer without us. We're going to find a new home far away where we can't hurt anyone else. Goodbye. The recording ended. Felt tears on her face again. Her people had chosen exile. They had saved the galaxy and then left because they were afraid of themselves. "Do you think any survived?" she asked. "We don't know," admitted. "It's been 3,000 years. If they did survive, they hid very well." Before could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Communication device chirped urgently. "Captain, you need to get to the command center now," Commander Sora's voice said. "We have a situation." They ran through the corridors. The command center was chaos, with officers shouting and screens showing tactical data. Commander Sora stood in the middle, her face grim. "3 colonies just went dark," Sora said. "No warning, no distress calls, they just stopped existing. Then we detected these." She pulled up sensor data on the main screen. His blood went cold. She recognized those readings. Energy patterns that didn't belong in normal space. Reality itself bending and twisting. The Veil whispered, "They're back." Sora nodded. "Our defense fleets moved to intercept. We just received their reports." She played a video transmission. The screen showed a coalition warship engaging something that hurt to look at. The Veil ships were organic, like giant insects made of living metal. They absorbed energy weapons, turning the blasts into fuel. When coalition ships got close, the Veil craft released spores that ate through armor like acid. "Fall back," a coalition admiral shouted in the video. "All ships retreat. We can't fight these things." The transmission ended abruptly as the ship exploded. "We lost 40 ships in the first engagement," Sora said quietly. 3 worlds are gone, over 9 billion people dead, and this is just the beginning. Long-range sensors show more Veil ships entering our galaxy. Thousands of them." The room fell silent. Every officer present understood what this meant. The coalition had never fought a real war. They had border skirmishes, small conflicts, but nothing like this. They were diplomats and explorers, not warriors. Looked at, in the old war, how did your people fight them? Closed her eyes, remembering classified briefings from her military training. Every human learned basic combat, even scientists. We hit them hard and fast. We used nuclear weapons, antimatter bombs, anything that created physical destruction instead of energy. We boarded their ships and killed them from inside. And we accepted casualties that, she paused, that no other species would accept. "We need that knowledge," Sora said. "We need human tactics, human weapons, human strategies. But all we have is you, and you're a scientist, not a soldier." Stood up, every human was a soldier when necessary. "But you're right, I can't win this war alone. You need my people, the real warriors." "Your people are dead," said from the back of the room. "Maybe," said, "or maybe they're just hiding. Those final messages said they were leaving to find a new home. If they survived, they'd still be preparing, still be training. Humans never stop preparing for war. It's in our nature." Sora looked at. "The Council will never approve a wild search mission while we're under attack." "Then we don't ask permission," said. "We take my ship and follow any clues can find in the old records. If humans are out there, we need to find them before the Veil destroys everything." Pulled up the ancient human database from the structure where she'd been found. She searched through star charts, encrypted messages, anything that might give them a direction. Then she found it. Hidden coordinates, buried in a personal message from a human admiral to his family. It was subtle, coded in a way that only another human would recognize. "I have something," she said. "It might be nothing, but it's the only lead we have." "How far?" asked. Calculated the distance. 3 weeks at maximum speed through the shroud expanse. It's dangerous territory full of stellar anomalies. Most ships avoid it. Perfect place to hide, Sora said. Go, take whoever you need. If you find nothing, come back immediately. But if you find humans, she looked at the screens showing the Veil advance. Bring them home, bring them to war. The journey through the Shroud Expanse was like traveling through a nightmare. Ship moved slowly through clouds of gas that blocked their sensors. Stars appeared and disappeared as gravity fluctuations bent light in strange ways. Twice, they nearly flew into dead planets that appeared out of nowhere. I understand why no one explores this region, muttered, gripping his chair as the ship shook from another gravity wave. Stood beside him, eyes fixed on the navigation console. According to the coordinates, they were close. But close to what? Maybe nothing. Maybe her people had all died 3,000 years ago, and she was leading them on a pointless chase while the Veil destroyed Coalition worlds. Captain, I'm detecting something, the sensor officer called out. Multiple objects ahead. They're big. As the ship emerged from a gas cloud, they saw it. A massive ring structure floating in space, easily 100 kilometers across. It glowed with soft blue light, and through its center they could see not stars but something else. A tunnel through space, leading somewhere the sensors couldn't reach. It's a gateway, breathed. A jump gate. My people theorized about these but never built one. This must have taken decades, maybe centuries. Where does it lead? Asked. Only one way to find out. Gave the order and the ship moved toward the ring. As they passed through, reality twisted. Colors that shouldn't exist flashed outside the windows. Time felt wrong, like they were moving both forward and backward simultaneously. Then suddenly, it was over. They emerged in a new star system, and what they saw made everyone on the bridge gasp. Dozens of planets orbited a yellow sun. Every planet was inhabited, covered in cities that glowed with lights. Hundreds of space stations dotted the system. And ships, so many ships, all clearly built for war. They had aggressive designs, covered in weapons and armor. Life signs detected, the sensor officer said, voice shaking. Billions of them, all human. A communication signal reached them. A stern voice spoke in an old human language that understood perfectly. Unidentified vessel, this is New Terra Defense Command. State your identity and purpose, or we will open fire. You have 30 seconds to comply. Rushed to the communication console. This is Doctor of the Research Ship Discovery. I am human. I was in sleep for 3,000 years. I have Coalition representatives with me. Please, we need to talk. The Veil has returned. Silence. 30 seconds passed, then a minute. Finally, the voice returned. Doctor, your identity has been confirmed in our historical database. You are cleared to land. Coordinates are being transmitted. Welcome home. They landed on a planet that looked remarkably like Earth. Blue oceans, green forests, and cities that mixed old and new architecture. But something was different. Every building had defensive positions. Parks doubled as emergency supply depots. Children playing in streets wore clothes with armor plating underneath. A group of people met them at the landing pad. They all wore military uniforms. At the front stood a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. He looked at with an expression of wonder. My name is Admiral, he said. I command the reclamation fleet. Behind me is Director, head of the Earthborn Protocol. We've been waiting for this day for 3,000 years. Waiting for what? Asked. For the galaxy to need us again, said. She was shorter than but had the same military bearing. We've been monitoring Coalition space since we left. We saw your civilization grow, saw you build peace. And we waited because we knew the Veil would return someday. They were taken to a command center deep underground. The walls displayed tactical information about the entire galaxy. Saw real-time data about the Veil invasion, updated information about Coalition fleet movements, and detailed analysis of battle reports. You've been spying on us? Asked. We've been protecting you, corrected. When we left, we made a promise. We would stay away, keep our violence to ourselves. But if the Veil ever came back, we would be ready. We built these worlds as training grounds, as armories. Every human here is born into military service. We learn to fight before we learn to read. We train for war every day of our lives. Walked to a window overlooking a training field. She watched thousands of soldiers practicing combat maneuvers. They moved with frightening efficiency, each person knowing exactly what to do without being told. "This isn't the humanity I remember," she said quietly. "We were more than just warriors." "We still are," said, joining her at the window. "We have artists, scientists, philosophers, but we never forgot what we're best at. We're best at fighting, at surviving, at protecting others even when it costs us everything. That's not something to be ashamed of. It's who we are." A young officer approached and saluted. "Admiral, the Council of Captains is assembled. They're ready to hear the Coalition's request." They were taken to a large chamber where hundreds of military officers waited, stood before them, feeling small and unprepared. These were warriors from legends, and he was just an explorer who had accidentally found them. "Honored captains," began, "the Coalition is dying. In 2 weeks the Veil has destroyed 27 worlds. We've lost half our fleet. Our defenses are breaking everywhere. We need help. We need you." An older woman stood up. "Why should we fight for you? You treated us like myths, like scary stories. You forgot what we sacrificed for you." "We didn't forget," said. "We just didn't know you were real. And yes, maybe we were happy to forget about war, to pretend it could never happen again. But you're right to be angry. We got comfortable. We stopped preparing. And now people are dying because of it." "How many ships do you need?" asked. "Everything you have," admitted. "The Veil numbers in the thousands. We need a miracle." The officers began arguing among themselves. Some said they should help immediately. Others wanted guarantees, wanted to ensure humanity would have a place in the new galaxy. A few said they should stay hidden and let the Coalition fall. Stood and silence fell. 3,000 years ago our ancestors left because they were afraid of what they would become if they stayed. They were afraid they would turn their weapons on friends instead of enemies. They chose peace over power. He looked at each officer in turn. But they also swore that if true evil returned, so would we. The Veil isn't just an enemy. They're an extinction event. If we don't fight, there won't be a galaxy left to protect. "The Coalition doesn't want us as equals," another captain argued. "They'll want us as servants, as attack dogs they can leash when convenient." Stepped forward. "Then we make our terms clear before we leave. We fight as independent forces. We answer to our own commanders. We share our technology, but we keep our autonomy. The Coalition asked for help. We give it freely. But we are not their subordinates. We are their guardians, whether they like it or not." The vote was unanimous. Every captain agreed. "We have 200 ships ready for combat," said. "Another 500 can be prepared in a week. It's not enough to win, but it's enough to buy time. Captain, take your ship back to Coalition space. Tell them we're coming. Tell them the humans remember their duty." As they prepared to leave, pulled aside. "Are you sure about this? We chose exile for a reason. What if we become the monsters we were afraid of?" Smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We probably will, but right now the galaxy needs monsters. They need someone willing to do what they can't. They need humans." Ship launched, racing back through the jump gate. Behind them, New Terra mobilized for war. The reclamation fleet activated, weapons charged, and soldiers boarded ships. The legends were waking up, and the galaxy was about to remember what humanity really was. The age of peace was over. The age of war had begun again. The Coalition High Council chamber fell silent when finished his report. 20 species leaders sat around the circular table, their faces showing everything from hope to fear. Commander Sara stood beside, backing up his incredible story. "You're saying humans are real?" the council leader asked. And they're coming here with warships. 200 ships now, 500 more in a week, confirmed. They've been preparing for this day for 3,000 years. A reptilian council member hissed. And we're supposed to trust them. The stories say humans were dangerous, unstable. What if they turn their weapons on us? Then we die faster than we're dying now, Sora said bluntly. She pulled up casualty reports on the main screen. In 3 weeks, we've lost 42 worlds and 800 ships. The Veil is winning. Humans are our only chance. The debate continued for hours, but ultimately they had no choice. The human fleet arrived 2 days later, and it was a sight no one had ever seen before. The ships were sleek and deadly, covered in weapons that coalition sensors couldn't fully identify. They moved in aggressive formations, ready for combat at any moment. Admiral arrived at Coalition Command in a small shuttle. He walked through the halls flanked by human soldiers, and everyone stopped to stare. Humans were tall and looked fragile compared to many alien species, but there was something in their eyes that made others step back. A cold confidence, like predators that knew they were superior. The first joint battle planning session was a disaster. Coalition Admiral presented his defensive strategy. We'll establish a perimeter here, fortify these systems, and wait for the Veil to attack. Our ships will focus on long-range engagement, minimizing casualties. That's a slow death, Captain said. He was young for a human captain, barely 30, but he commanded one of their most powerful destroyers. The Veil will just go around your perimeter and attack undefended worlds. You can't defend everything. Then what do you suggest? Asked coldly. Pulled up different tactical maps. We attack. Hit their supply lines, board their ships, destroy their command vessels, make them react to us instead of us reacting to them. That's suicide, said. You'll lose ships. Yes, agreed. We will lose ships, we will lose people, but we'll win. That's the difference between your strategy and ours. You want to survive, we want to win. The tension in the room was thick. Watching from the back, saw the cultural divide clearly. The coalition thought of war as something to endure and survive. Humans thought of war as something to win, no matter the cost. They tested the human approach at the Battle of Meridian Gate. It was a minor system with 3 inhabited moons, currently under Veil attack. Coalition forces were attempting an organized evacuation, but the Veil ships kept advancing, cutting off escape routes. Destroyer, the Breaking Dawn, arrived first. He didn't wait for the rest of the fleet. He didn't establish defensive positions. He simply accelerated to maximum speed and flew straight at the largest Veil ship. What is he doing? Shouted from the command center. Winning, said calmly. Ship opened fire with everything it had. Missiles, plasma cannons, all focused on a single point on the Veil mothership's hull. The Veil ship tried to absorb the energy, but there was too much, coming too fast. Its organic armor began to fail. Then did something that made every coalition officer watching gasp in horror. He rammed his ship into the weakened section at full speed. The impact was devastating. The Breaking Dawn's reinforced nose punched through the Veil ship's hull, driving deep into its core, and his crew boarded the enemy vessel from inside, fighting their way through corridors filled with hostile creatures. They reached the ship's central chamber and detonated nuclear charges. The Veil mothership exploded. The Breaking Dawn limped away, heavily damaged but intact. His face appeared on the communication screen, covered in blood and burns, grinning like a madman. Target destroyed, proceeding to next objective. That was when the coalition truly understood what human tactics meant. Single ship had accomplished more in 10 minutes than their entire fleet had in hours, but the cost was visible. Half of his crew was dead or wounded. His ship was barely operational, and he was ready to do it again. Back at Coalition Command, worked with a brilliant researcher named. Together, they analyzed Veil biology and technology, looking for weaknesses. Was young but incredibly smart. She had studied ancient human research and understood things about the Veil that others had missed. "They're not really invaders," explained, pulling up complex data. "They're more like maintenance workers. They see certain types of life as errors that need to be corrected. Species that evolve too aggressively, that spread too fast, that fight too well. They're trying to maintain balance in the universe." "So we're the error they want to fix," said. "Humanity specifically. You evolved faster than any other known species. You went from basic tools to space travel in just 10,000 years. Other species took millions. You adapt to anything, survive anything. From the Veil's perspective, you're a virus that needs to be eliminated." That's why they came back, realized. They detected humans re-emerging into the galaxy. Nodded. "The Coalition wasn't the target, you were. But now they'll destroy everything to get to humanity." This information changed the entire war. It wasn't about territory or resources. It was about extinction. The Veil would never stop, never negotiate. They would keep coming until humans were dead or they were destroyed. Admiral called an emergency meeting of all human and coalition commanders. The mood was grim. Reports showed the Veil amassing a massive fleet near Coalition Prime, the capital world. It would be the final battle. "Intelligence estimates 3,000 Veil ships," said. "We have 700 combined coalition and human vessels. We're outnumbered 4-1. "Then we'll die fighting," said simply. "There might be another way," said nervously. She pulled up research data. "The Veil exists partially in another dimension. They use quantum tunneling to move between realities. If we could create a resonance weapon, something that disrupts their quantum signature, we could destroy them all at once." "What would it take to build such a weapon?" asked. "We already have most of the technology," said, studying the plans. "Old human research into dimensional physics, but there's a problem. The weapon would need to be calibrated from inside the Veil's dimensional rift. Someone would have to fly into their command structure and activate it manually." Everyone understood what that meant. It was a suicide mission. "How long to build it?" asked. 3 days, said. "But that's just the weapon. Getting someone through their defenses to deploy it. That's going to take everything we have." Looked at his officers. "Then we have 3 days to prepare. Tell every ship to arm up. Tell every soldier to make their peace. We're going to attack Coalition Prime, and we're either going to save the galaxy or die trying." As the meeting broke up, Sara pulled aside. "Do you really think we can win?" Looked at the humans preparing for battle. They weren't afraid. They were excited, eager even. This was what they had trained for their entire lives. "I think humans don't know how to lose," he said. "And maybe that's exactly what we need." The fleet began to gather. Coalition ships with their defensive designs, and human ships built only for attack. Together, they would make their stand at Coalition Prime. The largest battle in galactic history was about to begin. Aboard his flagship, recorded a message to send to every ship in the fleet. His words were simple but powerful. "They called us ancient lore. They thought we were myths, stories to tell children. Today, we remind the universe why we were feared. Today, we show them why we were needed. This is our purpose. This is what we were born to do, for the fallen, for the future, for humanity." The message ended, and the fleet jumped to hyperspace. The final battle had begun. Coalition Prime was burning when the fleet arrived. 3,000 Veil ships surrounded the planet like a swarm of locusts. Their organic hulls pulsed with dark energy as they fired weapons that tore reality itself. The planet's defense stations were already destroyed, their wreckage floating in orbit. "All ships, this is Admiral, begin the attack. Show them what we are." The human fleet didn't slow down. They accelerated into the Veil formation at maximum speed, weapons firing. Coalition ships followed more cautiously, trying to match the humans' aggressive tactics but clearly uncomfortable with it. Pilot led a squadron of 30 fighters toward the largest Veil command ship. His flew in perfect formation, each one ready to die if needed. They had trained for this their entire lives. Every simulation, every drill, had been preparing them for this exact moment. "Break formation on my mark," ordered. "Target their sensor clusters, make them blind." The fighters scattered, weaving through veiled defense fire. 3 ships exploded immediately, torn apart by enemy weapons. Didn't slow down. He couldn't. The mission was everything. The mission was all that mattered. His squadron fired missiles at the Veil ship's sensor arrays. Explosions bloomed across its hull. The ship began firing blindly, hitting its own allies. In the chaos, saw his opening. "All fighters follow me in. We're going for the core." "Sir, that's suicide," one of his pilots said. "Yes, it is," agreed. "Do it anyway." They flew into the Veil ship through a damaged section of hull. Inside was a nightmare. Organic corridors pulsed with alien life. Creatures that shouldn't exist crawled along the walls. But the fighters pressed forward, deeper into the ship, until they reached a massive chamber at the center. "Arming nuclear charges," said calmly. "It's been an honor flying with you all." His squadron planted their bombs and tried to escape, but the Veil ship had closed the exit. Only 3 fighters made it out. Wasn't one of them. The nuclear explosion destroyed the Veil command ship from inside, taking 27 human pilots with it. On the ground level of Coalition Prime, Marine held a defensive position at one of the evacuation centers. Veil boarding pods had crashed through the planet's shields, and their creatures were everywhere. Massive insect-like things with too many legs and weapons that grew from their own bodies. This unit had been ordered to hold a corridor for 20 minutes while civilians evacuated. That was 14 hours ago. Everyone else in her unit was dead, but was still there, her armor covered in alien blood, her weapons almost empty, still fighting. "Come on," she screamed at the approaching Veil creatures. "I'm right here, come get me." They came in waves. Dozens, then hundreds, killed them all. When her rifle ran empty, she used her sidearm. When that ran empty, she used her combat knife. When the knife broke, she used her bare hands. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds, her armor was shattered, but she wouldn't stop. Behind her, the last evacuation ship lifted off. Thousands of civilian lives saved because one human refused to die. Collapsed as the ship cleared the atmosphere. Medical teams found her barely alive, surrounded by over 200 dead Veil creatures. They rushed her to a medical ship, where doctors worked desperately to save her life. In space, the battle raged on. The combined fleet was losing. For every Veil ship destroyed, they lost 3 of their own. The math was simple and brutal. They couldn't win. Watch from his ship as another Coalition cruiser exploded. Beside him, Commander Sora worked the tactical console with quiet efficiency, but he could see the fear in her eyes. "We can't keep this up," she said. "We'll be wiped out in another hour." "The weapon is almost ready," said, checking the status reports. "Says 10 more minutes." "Will we have 10 minutes?" Didn't answer, he couldn't. On the human flagship, Admiral stood on the bridge watching his fleet die. Every lost ship was a list of names he had known personally, people he had trained with, eaten with, laughed with, but he couldn't mourn, not yet. The mission came first. "Admiral, the resonance weapon is ready," reported from engineering. "But we need to get it inside the Veil's dimensional rift. Their main command nexus is at the center of their formation." Looked at the tactical display. The Veil nexus was surrounded by over 500 ships. Getting through would require sacrificing most of the remaining fleet just to create an opening. "I'll take it," said. "Sir, you can't," his second officer protested. "The fleet needs you." "The fleet needs someone to finish this," corrected. He turned to face his crew. "It's been an honor serving with all of you. Continue the attack. Keep them focused on the battle. I'll handle the rest." He walked to the hangar bay where a small assault craft waited. Met him there, holding the resonance weapon. It looked simple, just a silver cylinder covered in complex circuitry. Once you activate it inside the rift, you'll have about 30 seconds before it detonates, she explained. The explosion will spread through dimensional space, destroying every Veil ship simultaneously, but you won't be able to escape. I know, said. He took the weapon and secured it in the craft. Tell Captain he's in command. Tell him to get everyone out of here once the Veil is gone. I will, promised. Tears ran down her face. Thank you for everything, Admiral. Launched his craft into the battle. The small ship was fast and agile, weaving through the chaos. Dozens of human fighters formed up around him without being asked, creating a protective escort. They knew what he was doing. They knew he wouldn't come back. One by one, the escort fighters were destroyed. Each one bought a few more seconds, a few more meters. The Veil Nexus grew larger ahead of him, a massive structure that existed half in normal space and half in another dimension. Reality bent and twisted around it. The last escort fighter exploded. Was alone now, just him and his small craft against an army. He armed all his weapons and fired everything at once, creating a momentary gap in the Veil's defenses. His ship shot through, taking heavy damage but still flying. He crashed into the Nexus, his ship tearing through organic walls. The inside was impossible to describe. Up and down had no meaning. Colors that shouldn't exist painted the walls. Creatures made of pure thought watched him with eyes that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Climbed out of his wrecked ship, carrying the resonance weapon. He could feel the Veil trying to enter his mind, trying to understand what he was, but he pushed them back with sheer willpower. He was human. His mind was his own. He reached what he thought was the center of the structure. The resonance weapon activated with a simple button press. Numbers counted down on a small screen. 30 seconds. Opened a communication channel one last time. His message reached every ship in the fleet, every person fighting for survival. This is Admiral. We came back because we were needed. We fought because it was right. We're sacrificing ourselves because it's necessary. That's what humans do. That's what we've always done. We protect. We serve. We give everything so others can live. Tell the galaxy to remember us not as warriors or monsters, but as guardians who never abandoned their duty. The timer reached 0. The weapon detonated. The explosion was silent in space, but its effects were immediate. Every Veil ship, from the largest command vessels to the smallest fighters, simply stopped existing. They didn't explode or fall apart. They just ceased to be, erased from reality as the resonance wave destroyed their quantum signatures across 40 light years. 3,000 Veil ships gone in an instant. The threat that had nearly destroyed the galaxy was eliminated. But the cost was clear. Of the 700 ships that began the battle, only 200 survived. Over 100,000 beings were dead, and 40,000 of them were human. The human fleet that had returned to save the galaxy was reduced to a fraction of its original size. On Coalition Prime, people emerged from shelters to see a sky finally clear of enemy ships. They cheered, they cried, they celebrated. But the Coalition leaders knew the truth. They had been saved by people they had treated as myths, people who had given everything to protect them. 6 months later, a memorial ceremony was held on Coalition Prime. Representatives from all 847 species attended. At the center of a vast plaza stood a monument made of black stone, covered with names. Every person who had died in the battle was listed, human and alien alike. Stood before the monument, wearing a formal Coalition dress uniform. She had been named the Human Ambassador, the bridge between her people and the galaxy they had saved. "We didn't want to come back," she said to the assembled crowd. "We were afraid of what we were, afraid of our own nature. But when you needed us, we answered. Admiral, pilot, marine, and 142,000 others gave their lives because that's what humans do. We protect, even when it costs us everything." The humans who survived were offered full membership in the Coalition, but they declined. Instead, they created the Sentinel Corps, an independent military force that would respond to existential threats but remain separate from coalition politics. They would be guardians, not conquerors. And Sara stood together watching the ceremony. They had both been promoted for their roles in finding humanity and coordinating the defense. "Do you think we'll need them again?" Sara asked quietly. "Probably," said. "The universe is full of dangers, but now we know they'll answer when we call." The ceremony ended with a moment of silence. Millions of people across hundreds of worlds stopped whatever they were doing to remember those who had fallen. And carved above the memorial wall, in every known galactic language, were words that would never be forgotten. "They called, we answered, we always will." Humanity had returned to the stars, not as conquerors or equals, but as eternal guardians. And the galaxy would never forget the ancient lore that became real when it was needed most.